Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into some incredibly urgent insights from global church leaders on a totally defining question for our era. Namely, how can church leaders implement real, tangible, shared leadership to actually attract and empower Generation Z? We're going to be drawing from some truly fascinating presentations by leaders like Dr. Alan Ye and Rev Wu Jinbo, who essentially argue that the old, top-down models of leadership, they're simply not working for today's youth. Okay, let's kick things off with a slightly uncomfortable question. When we say we're including young people, are we actually giving them a voice? Or are we just handing them the chores? Like, are we inviting them to help steer the ship? Or are we just asking them to pour the coffee and set up the folding chairs? I know, it's a harsh question, but as we'll see today, this exact distinction is where so many traditional structures completely fail to engage this generation. And just to understand why this is so urgent right now, take a look at this number, 25. That is the average age of the population in the Global South right now. So to put that into perspective, reaching and empowering young people isn't just some nice side project or youth group initiative. It is absolutely paramount to the very survival and future of these communities. So here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. We'll hit 1. The Gen Z crisis, 2. Culture over activities, 3. Mission and generational reconciliation, 4. Implementing real shared leadership, 5. The art of stepping back, and finally, 6. Facing difficult topics bravely. Let's get into it. Section 1. The Gen Z crisis. Understanding the unique pressures facing today's youth. Dr. Alan Ye points out that Gen Z is operating under just immense sociological and economic stress. Think about it. They were heavily impacted by the fallout of COVID-19 during their most formative years, and they are statistically the first generation that's likely to earn less than their parents. When you add in the intense academic competition and, honestly, skyrocketing levels of loneliness across the globe, you have a generation whose foundational needs have fundamentally shifted. They really aren't looking for just another social club. They are desperately looking for an anchor. And because of all these immense pressures, Dr. Ye highlights the strategic importance of the 14-14 window. This refers to the critical ages, between 4 and 14 years old, where a lifelong foundation of faith and worldview is deeply, deeply established. The data shows our focus urgently has to pivot to this demographic if we want to see lasting impact. This is where the future of the organization is literally built. Moving right along to Section 2. Culture over activities. Why changing what we do isn't enough. Rev Wu Jinbo shared some really fascinating data comparing traditional congregations with international ones in Hong Kong. The traditional model, it often relies on strict hierarchy, it focuses heavily on activities, the what we do, and frankly, it tends to just preach at young people. The result is that youth leave. But on the flip side, the international model relies on vulnerable leadership. It focuses on the how we do it, the culture, and actually prioritizes listening to young people. Gen Z absolutely craves a culture of trust, authenticity, and a flattened hierarchy, way more than they crave just better entertainment. So, the huge takeaway here is that a real shift in organizational culture is what actually attracts this generation. It means moving away from rigid titles and this all-knowing leadership posture and leaning into genuine partnership and vulnerability. That is the real secret sauce here. All right, Section 3, Mission and Generational Reconciliation, the theological mandate for change. Dr. Alan Ye explains this really powerful concept called Polycentric Mission. Now, historically, we've kind of thought of mission as going from the West to the rest. But just as the early church had 5 distinct geographic centers, like Rome, Antioch, and Alexandria, modern mission is polycentric. It goes from everyone to everywhere. And Dr. Ye makes a vital connection here for us. This diversity of influence has to extend to age as well. And this completely grounds our strategy right in Scripture. Galatians 3:28 speaks of unity across race, class, and gender. Ephesians and Colossians specifically tackle reconciliation between parents and children. And the Great Commission, that's about the deep, messy work of making disciples, not just one-way preaching. True generational reconciliation, actually treating youth as equal partners in the mission, is a core part of the gospel message itself. Which brings us to Section 4. Implementing real shared leadership, moving from tokenism to true empowerment. We have got to fundamentally shift our operational paradigm here. The old way meant youth did the chores, listened to one-way lectures, and watched their toughest questions get swept right under the rug. The new way, it means inviting them into the very core decision-making layers. It means they're sitting on the executive board, engaging in mutual curiosity with older leaders, and, get this, actually having a hand in making budget and directional decisions. As Dr. Ye perfectly puts it, shared leadership requires handing over actual authority. It means completely changing our communication style from lecturing at them to approaching them with kindness, curiosity, and a real, genuine desire to understand their dreams and their fears. Section 5. The Art of Stepping Back, the Hardest Leadership Transition. Rev Wu Jinbo outlines these 4 exact steps for leaders, and they're so crucial. Step 1 is the invitation. But step 2, that's the kicker, deliberately stepping aside. As Rev Wu points out, young people so often feel like there is simply no space for them to lead. Without the older generation intentionally stepping back to create that vacuum, the younger generation literally has no room to step up. At the very core of this transition is trust, and specifically, giving them the freedom to fail. Leaders have to allow Gen Z to lead in ways that might actually make the older generation quite uncomfortable. And look, when they inevitably make mistakes, the role of the older leader is to provide support and comfort, without pointing fingers or saying, "See, I told you so." That right there is how you build a resilient, truly empowered generation. Finally, Section 6, Facing Difficult Topics Bravely, creating a safe space for real-world questions. Gen Z is swimming in an absolute minefield of complex issues today. We're talking the ethics of artificial intelligence, big questions around sexual orientation and identity, severe mental health struggles, and deep, deep loneliness. Instead of sweeping these difficult topics under the rug just because they make us uncomfortable, a healthy culture talks about them openly. Leaders absolutely must provide a safe space to offer faith-based answers to the questions Gen Z is actually asking, not just the questions we wish they were asking. The moderator of these sessions, Rev Su Lezong, hit the nail on the head when summarizing the stakes here. The external world and all its crazy new technologies, that's not the real threat. The real danger is internal stagnation. Personal transformation and continuous learning among leaders is absolutely our greatest defense against becoming obsolete. Doing this requires a profound mindset shift. Stepping back isn't a defeat, right? It's a heroic, deeply biblical act. Think about King David. He spent his later years gathering and preparing all the materials so that his son, Solomon, could actually build the temple. It's all about willingly equipping the next generation to build something magnificent that you yourself might never actually see finished. So I'm going to leave you with this final, challenging thought to chew on today. Bridging the gap with Generation Z is not about throwing more money at flashier youth programs. It requires us to surrender our own comfort, our own traditional hierarchies, and our own need for control, all for the sake of their future. The question is, are we actually ready to take that step? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.